You want to give your rescue horse the best possible future and make him happy. If you want to transform your rescue to a rescued horse, it requires 3 things. I will give you these 3 pillars to get from a broken, unhappy rescue horse and transform your horse into a confident, happy horse that trusts you, that feels safe, and that you can enjoy every day. Let's talk about what a rescue horse really is. A rescue horse is chronically stressed. His welfare needs are not being met. He's unhappy. He can be shut down. He might have unpredictable or undesired behaviors. When he transforms into a rescued horse in his new home, then the purpose is to make him feel safe and confidence so that he will show normal horse behaviors. He can keep his emotions under threshold, so fight, flight and freeze response are not his go-to responses anymore. A rescued horse is interested and responsive to his environment, and his welfare needs are met. He's looking out for you. He wants to make contact and connect with you. So in order to get your rescue to a rescued horse, you need to have 3 things in place. Let's start about the first pillar. So the pillar number 1, before we can do anything else, we need to establish a 2-way communication with our horses. We understand him and he can understand us. That's a requirement before we can start training them. The second pillar is, in order to be able to train your rescue horse and turn him into a healthy, positive horse, we have to support him with positive reinforcement. With positive reinforcement, we can undo a lot of negative training that has damaged this horse. I've noticed that using positive reinforcement will really empower the horse. You will give your horse choices, and his feedback tells you so much. And with that feedback, you can adjust the training specifically to what your horse needs in the moment. So therefore, I work with positive reinforcement. And then the third thing that is super important to turn your rescue into a rescued horse is that you need support to do this, because this is not the easiest task. Having a rescue comes with its own specific challenges. And if you don't save this horse, who will? So you need these 3 things. So let's start with the pillar of 2-way communication with your horse. In order to even start to build that communication, we first need to assess your horse's welfare level. And there's more to it than I show and share in this presentation, because it's too short to go into all the details. But think about your horse's welfare level. So we need to take a look at their stress levels at the moment, and we need to find out what their go-to stress response is, because that's super important, because the more we know about them, the better we can respond to them and prevent dangerous situations and dangerous behaviors. They also might suffer from learned helplessness in some areas of their lives. And positive reinforcement is really a good training way to open up their mind and to show them that they do have choices in their life. So the second thing to create that 2-way communication is that you need to know something about how learning takes place. You need to understand your horse, because the principles of learning and motivation always are at work. And if you don't know anything about them, you miss important cues and training tools that you can use to communicate with your horse. So the principles of learning, you need to know what motivates your horse, what he likes, what he dislikes, and also when does learning occur? You know, when your horse is in flight or fight, he's not in learning mode. So we have to recognize these emotions, these behaviors, so that we are aware of if our horse is in learning mode. I already mentioned it, emotions in training are super important. We have to fully understand and become aware of our own emotions and our horse's emotions. A horse that is in flight or fight is not open to learning. If we get frustrated, we are not the best teachers in that moment. So we need to know and recognize our emotions. We need to know when we are getting over threshold, when our horse is getting over threshold, and recognizing emotions, different emotions, is the first step. And then with the principles of learning and motivation, we can change these emotions. When a horse is frustrated, what do you do to get him back to relaxation so he can go back to learning mode? These are super important and all part of that two-way communication. If you don't understand your horse, you can't help him. So once we have established a secure communication, we can start building mutual understanding and trust, and now we can move on to the second pillar, which is positive reinforcement training. There are 6 basic behaviors that you need to learn that you can build any other behavior on. We're going to assess your skill levels of these behaviors in the program, and if you don't have the foundation, it's going to be really hard. Also, teaching your horse these 6 basic behaviors is a really good way to introduce positive reinforcement to your horse and to explain the rules of this new way of training to him. The next thing is we need to have a goal. We need to have a goal that we are training for. We need to be aware of what is our prize at the end of this journey, so that we can stay motivated along the way, because there will be days that we will really need to get in touch with our motivation, because it's not easy training your own horse, and it's not easy rehabilitating a rescue horse. So we will be assessing your goals, and you can assess your own goals. Is your goal clear? Is it achievable? All those things are part of the bubble that is called your goals. So now that you have your goal, you need to have a plan. You need to have a training plan. What is the way? What is your journey look like to going from A to B? A is where you're at, B is where you want to go. So your destination, and you're going from A to B with a training plan. What are the things that your horse needs to be able to do in order to get to your goals? Maybe one of your goals is trail riding, but in order to go to the trails, you need to trailer load your horse. So you need to know, okay, I need a safe, reliable trail horse, but I also need a horse that can travel safely. So that is all in your training plan. And your training plan consists of multiple pieces. One of those pieces, for instance, are shaping plans. Shaping plans are manuals to train a specific behavior with positive reinforcement. So now we can do our training. The third pillar that we have to have in place is support. We can do this alone. It's just impossible. We all need support. We all need somebody to learn from, somebody who supports us, motivates us. Because like I said, training a rescue horse and make him feel safe and relaxed in his new environment and connect with you, it's just not that easy. So what you need to have in place is some kind of accountability. We will be going to assess your accountability. Do you have someone who keeps you on track with your specific individual goals? What do you have set up for yourself when you fall off the bandwagon? Because that happens. Life happens. We're on a roll, we're training, we're getting results. Something happened. Maybe on work, we need to be doing extra work. Somebody gets sick in our family. How do we get back to our training schedule? That's what accountability is for. Who or what is motivating you to go back on track when you've fallen off the bandwagon? Who keeps motivating you until you have accomplished your goals with your horse? So that brings me to the next part of support, which is called consistency. Let's face it, it's being consistent in training that leads to result. And that's also not easy to be consistent. So in order to keep consistent in training, you need a plan, you need motivation, you need accountability. As you can see, all these pieces that I've been talking about fit in together. They are like a big puzzle together because all these pieces support each other. And the final piece of the support pillar is called community, because we need a community of people to help us, preferable people who've been there where we want to go. Do you have a community of people who have rescue horses, that want their horse to feel safe and rescued, who are using positive reinforcement to help their horses recover? Have you people in your community who really get it, that you might not be riding your horse because your horse is being rescued? He's in the process of transformation at the point, and maybe riding is not the right thing to do for your horse, and maybe never. Do you have people in your community who really understand that having a horse is not about riding? People who understand the struggle, people who are supporting you when you're just having a bad day, people that you don't have to defend your training methods or the reason that you're not riding or whatever it is that you are doing with your horse that you feel is the right way, that those people are supporting you. That's what this is about when I'm talking about community. So these 9 things are going to help you to take your horse from being a rescue to feeling rescued. So these steps are all the steps that you're going to need to go through to get to your goal. And I have an assessment that will help you see where you're at in this journey, and also what the pieces are that you might to focus on right now in order to get ahead with your journey. So if you want to go into detail with this with me, I would love to help you. You can book a free online clicker training assessment with me if you'd like to do this together with me, if you really want to understand this, and if you want to figure out how you can get where you are now to where you want to be with your horse. In this assessment, we are going through all these steps. We are really assessing where you're at, and then you know exactly what your next step in your journey with your horse needs to be. So I don't want to leave you today without something really tangible and useful that you can start applying and work with right away. So we are going to talk a little bit about step 1, pillar 1, and I've already mentioned it, your horse's welfare level and his go-to stress response. Let's talk about that. For example, in order to stay safe, we have to know what the go-to stress response of your horse is. So you will recognize it sooner the next time, and you can start doing things to help your horse go back to relaxation again. So he will stay under threshold. That's the part of that two-way communication that I have been talking about. So it's super important to develop that two-way communication, because with the feedback of your horse, you can adjust your training, and this is what setting your horse up for success really is. It is super individual, so it is super important that you know what your horse's stress response look like, what he does, and what you need to do in order to make him feel safe and confident and bring him back under threshold. So let's talk about what your horse's go-to stress responses can be. Some horses have the same stress response to different situations, and of course the same horse can have different responses according to the situation. But once you learn to recognize the first signs, it's super important to have that two-way communication and start helping your horse feel safe. So maybe his go-to response to stress is flight. What does it look like? Your horse has a high anxiety level. He might be very hurt-bound. He might be stressed to leaving his pasture. He might be fearful, and he's easily spooked. That is a horse that stress response is flight. For instance, a lot of off-track thoroughbred fall into this category because it makes them perfect racehorses. You will notice that certain go-to stress responses can be related to their breed. Maybe your horse's go-to stress response is fight. Those horses are the horses that tend to nip at your clothes or bite in the air. He might pin his ears a lot, or he swishes his tail, even though we have learned, if we had traditional training as a rider ourselves, we have learned to ignore those signals because your horse doesn't mean anything by it. That's what we have been told. That's what we have been made to believe. But your horse does mean something with it. So some horses stick to the threads. Others might actually start kicking or biting you when they are pushed too far. So often these horses get labeled as dangerous, as aggressive, and often that fear response or that stress response can be changed if we change his environments. Some horses have learned that aggression just pays off and humans leave them alone. But it can also be a pain response. So we need to know if it's stress or pain and what's the difference between the two. Because sometimes these horses are also at their wits' end and they're actually screaming in the hope that you will start paying attention because they have an important message for you. So maybe your horse is in pain, and if you go on that route, you might discover things like tooth problems or arthritis or other painful issues that if you can resolve that, a lot of these behavioral issues are already solved. Then there is the freeze response. Horses turn inward as response to stress and are temporarily shutting down. And then they are not responsive at all. So often breeds like Gypsy Banners or Fjord horses and other working breeds are like that, because we don't like draft horses with a flight response. So if they have more a freeze mode go-to response, it's easily overlooked for us as humans because it's a less dangerous response for us. So some horses have learned and stopped responding at all to situations. That can be due to chronic stress, to harsh training methods and punishments, or they don't have any control or choices over their environment or their bodies, which can lead to learned helplessness. And it's the horses that don't respond to leg aids or a whip, or don't even lift their heads when you enter their stall. They are often sold as husband horses, as perfect beginner horses, or they're simply called lazy. And they need rescue too. They're not happy at all. They can be severely depressed. And maybe you didn't realize that one of your other horses is like that. Maybe he's an actual rescue, even though you didn't get him from a rescue organization or situation. So the next time you're with your horse, start paying attention to his signals. What is he telling you? What signals does he give you? Does he get into flight, fight, or freeze response? Or does he suffer from learned helplessness the moment he gets a halter on? These are all very, very important things to know about your horse, and these can really, really help you to know which next step you have to take in order to start developing that two-way communication that keeps you both safe. So when we're able to assess our horses' stress levels and their go-to responses, we can get them back to relaxation, we can get them back into learning mode, we can relax them, and it increases the safety of all of those are involved. So when you want to deep dive into this assessment with me and get personal results, then you can book an assessment with me. It's completely free, and this is the link to join. Thank you for joining, and as always, happy horse training. Remember, you are the trainer.